I'm your host, Dino Watt, and get ready to be inspired as you learn exactly how to own your role. Welcome once again to the Own Your Role podcast, everyone. My name is Dino Watt. I'm your host, and I'm so grateful for you joining us every single week as we release new podcasts that help you in your business, and always talking to unique entrepreneurs. And today we have a very unique entrepreneur who was an entrepreneur, decided to be even more of an entrepreneur in another aspect of what he wasn't doing. And I've actually known him for a few years because I'm a certified WHY Institute coach. And it's been something that I've been able to use in my business, not only for myself, but also for my clients. And it's been amazing. Before we get into that, just wanted to again thank everybody for being a part of this show by sharing it with your friends and colleagues and subscribing and letting people know more about it. It really has grown so much because of you. And thank you for the suggestions of guests that you have asked us to put on the show as well, because this show is about you and about how you can grow in your business. So our unique entrepreneur today is Dr. Gary Sanchez. And Dr. Gary Sanchez has a company called the WHY Institute. I know many of you have heard of Simon Sinek and Start With Why, or seen his Golden Circle TED Talk. And I think so often people talk about the why, but really no one really narrows down, well, what exactly do you mean? Because it kind of is nebulous in some ways. Well, what Gary did is he actually, and I'm going to let him tell you most of the story, but my perspective is he basically looked at that and said, well, what do you mean by that? Let's break it down. There's got to be some specifics we can talk to and talk about. And he created an incredible system that I think each and every one of you is going to want to get to know more about and find out how it can affect you and your business. So with that being said, let's welcome Dr. Gary Sanchez to the show. Thanks, Gary, for being here.
Dino, thank you for having me. I'm excited. We've been trying to do this for a while now.
I know, it's true. Between our schedules, it's been kind of crazy.
Well, here we are.
Yeah. Well, Gary, we always start the show with, I believe that stories are what connect every single one of us. We all have our story, right? And I think when we hear the stories of other people, we go, wow, we're pretty similar. What's your story? Where did you come from? Why did you get into this space? Why are you here?
Yeah, it never, not by design. I can tell you that. The odds that you and I would be here talking about this why thing 10 years ago or more were really zero. And, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, didn't know what direction I wanted to go. I went off to college just because it was the one that all my friends were at and seemed like a fun thing to do. Ended up going to dental school. Not because it was a lifelong passion, but because I didn't know, again, the direction that I wanted to go. And I didn't have a way to figure it out. My father was a dentist. So I said, let me give it a try. When I graduated from dental school, I went to USC Dental School. And when I graduated, the advice that I got from the gurus or the experts of that time was build a great product and people will come, right? Go out and do the best job you can. And people will naturally and mysteriously find out about you. So I spent 20 years doing that, getting to the highest levels you could in dentistry, studying with the best mentors, going to the best institutes, building a beautiful practice, hiring and training a great team. I had all the technology, I had all the stuff, but I still blended in with everybody else who said, yeah, I'm a dentist too. Drove me crazy, Dino. I was like, this just isn't fair. I mean, I've worked so hard and I'm not getting the results that I thought I would. My practice was not taking off, was not what I thought it should be. And that's when I heard about the concept of why. That was back in 2009. So that's when I saw Simon Sinek's TED Talk. And I watched it over and over and over again. And I bought his book and I read it multiple times. And I said, that's what I'm missing. I have a great what, but I don't know my why. And so I became obsessed with discovering my why. I called Simon. I said, Simon, I need you to help me. He and I spent about 8 months together going back through my life, looking for clues. He didn't really have a process for doing it. I kept working with it. And I finally figured out my why. And my why is to find a better way and then share it. My life has always been about finding better ways to do things and then sharing them with the world. I've got a lot of patents and products and inventions that are all better ways of doing things. So I went back and changed the messaging of our practice And we stopped talking about what we do, crowns, bridges, fillings, complete, all the dental stuff. And we started talking about why we do what we do and what we believe. We believe that life is better with great teeth. In fact, you can't have a good life with bad teeth. And so as we shifted our focus from what we do to why we do it, my practice took off, and the right people started coming into my practice that were looking for what we were offering, for what they believed, what we believed. And as my practice took off, I started getting calls from other dentists because we always help each other.
Yeah.
And I started to, they say, can you help me do what you did? So I went back and figured out a better way to help someone discover their why than what Simon came up with. So I could sit down with you in about an hour, help you discover your why, and then build your messaging, marketing, and branding all based on your why. And I did this for thousands of people for free all over the world, on stages, on Skype, helping them figure out their why. And I started to notice patterns, trends, similarities. And I figured out that there's only 9 different whys. And that was the most important thing that I discovered, because once I figured out there were 9 whys, then we had an endpoint. Then we knew when we got there, right? And then I could help you figure out your why in about 15 minutes. Then I could teach other people to do it. And then I could get lots of data. And with that data, in 2016, I developed the algorithm and wrote the software, which found your why in about 5 minutes. And so, Dino, I've done more why discoveries than anybody in the world. And I can tell you that I was only at my best about 70% accurate. So if everything you do, your passion, your purpose, your direction, your messaging, your marketing, your branding is all based on your why, do you think it's important that you get your why right?
Yeah, for sure. Especially because if you're only 70% accurate. I mean, who wants to work at as hard as we do typically in our jobs and know we're only going to get 70% of the output because of it?
Exactly.
I want to ask you, when you first discovered the better way.
Yep.
And you discovered, wow, that's what I do. And I do that. You probably saw the history of your life flash in front of your eyes of all the times that you did that. And you took this to your business and you saw the immediate increase in how you showed up, I'm sure, how the team did. How did it affect the people and the way that you saw people around you? Because that's something I find very fascinating about what it does for me.
As far as when I help them discover their why, or
no, about you being able to say, this is who I am. This is my why.
Confidence, clarity, certainty. There's such a big difference, Dino, between kind of knowing, kind of feeling, maybe thinking this is my why versus knowing what your why is. And the confidence with which you walk, most people walk around wondering if they even have a gift.
Yeah.
Wondering what it is they bring. They know what they do, but they don't really know why they do it. And once they know, and you've seen it yourself, what have you seen with people once they discover their why?
Well, what's funny is you asked me, sorry, I didn't hear it. You asked me. So what I see when people discover their why is that there's just so much clarity and confidence in everything they do. And I can take that for myself, because I used to do a why process. I kind of felt the same way with, I never hired Simon, but going through the video and through the book and everything, I created my own process of trying to help people that I would, at my seminars and events, process them through the why concept and finding your why. Because everybody always does the surface level. Well, my why is to provide for my family. That's not your why. That's a scapegoat, right? So I would go all the way down, and that was really good. I really liked the process I do. But to your point, there was never any still solid, this is what the word is that you're looking for, right? This is the discovery here. And so when I came across this, I think I actually saw you. I saw you on a podcast with Mike Koenig's. Yeah. And I went, wait a minute, there's an actual 9 whys. There's an actual process that I don't have to try to figure out. And because it took a while to take people through the process, and the amount of confidence that when I went through it myself, and I went, by the way, we'll go through the whys in a moment, but if you would have just asked me told me what the 9 whys were, and I would have picked out on my own, I was wrong. Because I would have said, oh, it's this. And then when I went through the process and I got my why back, which is to contribute, I was like, are you sure? And then I started looking at my life, and I went to my wife and I was like, this is what it came up with. I thought it would be this, but this. And she goes, oh no, that's totally you. You have a hard time saying yes to or no to people. You say yes to everything. You're always out giving people free advice when I'm telling you to charge, all the stuff, right? She's going through the list. So it was so clarifying for me that I started sharing it with everybody. Like, it's so powerful. When you had that, because there's 9.
Yep.
How long did it take you to realize there was 9? Was there ever more and you realize, oh, that's redundant, and actually goes into the same one? And I know that's 2 questions, but how long did it take you to realize, and were there ever more than the 9?
So here's how it happened. I was, like I said, I started helping anybody who would let me discover their why. And one time I was working with this group of about 50 lawyers in Florida. And I was told
Barrel of
that,
fun.
yeah, well, I was told that I was going to be on stage for about 45 minutes. And would I bring somebody out of the audience on stage with me and discover their why in front of the audience, like I always did, and then help them build their messaging, marketing, and branding? I said, sure, I'll do that. So I went out there to do it. And 14 hours later, I'm still on stage, bringing person after person. At 14 hours, I was there.
Oh my gosh.
But
I'll be
about
building them for every 14 hours. I'll be building for
I
every.
should. But about halfway through that day, this lady, this lawyer, raised her hand and she said, hey, Gary, how many whys are there? And I thought, well, I don't know. I never thought about that before. And that's when I started to keep track of them. And the same 9 kept coming up over and over and over. And here's the thing. For those of you that are listening, the why, your why, is housed, if you will, in the limbic part of your brain. That's the part of the brain that's responsible for feelings like loyalty and trust, but it doesn't have the capacity for language. So you can't really say why you feel a certain way. You just do. And so the way I would access the limbic brain, or your why, was through stories. So I would have you tell me story after story after story. And then within those stories, I could see the pattern. And that was what your why was. And imagine that you've become let's say you were painting a picture up on the wall, and you become very emotionally involved with it, physically involved with it, spiritually involved with this picture, this painting. And you create this masterpiece up on your wall, and it takes you months and months and months to create that masterpiece. Once it's on the wall, now there are other ways to get to that masterpiece. You could do paint by numbers. You could take a picture and break it down and create the outline and fill it in that way. There's so many other ways to get to that painting once somebody has put it up on the wall. Well, I spent years figuring out that there's 9 different whys. But once I figured out there were 9 whys, then I figured out a different way to get to them where you don't have to hear all the stories. Once I knew they were there, I knew what people would say with each of the 9 whys. And that's how I was able to get to turn it into software.
That's where it made me think, when you were saying you're up on that stage for the 14 hours asking the questions, like, you were basically, I'm guessing, processing them through their stories and their questions, coming down to a common denominator of their life.
Yep.
But weren't thinking, oh, look, yours is the same as that person's over there. You're, in the sense of the same being just the why, not the how and the what. But there was no structure in that sense to it. So I can totally relate to that, because that's how I felt like I did. I used to call it the frying pan, where I would say, I'm going to get you in the frying pan. You're going to say, I'm going to ask you questions. And I would use body language and the questions with it. And man, coming up, realizing it's 9 had been such a relief to you.
Yes.
To be able to say, oh yeah, there's 9. Everybody fits in that.
So if you don't know whether you're there, if you don't know whether you've gotten to your why, how do you know when to stop?
Yeah.
That was the problem, right? You ran into that
Yep.
yourself.
Totally.
Well, I think that might be your why. How does it feel to you? Well, I don't know. Kind of feels like it is to me too. I'm not
Yep.
sure though. So if you don't have confidence in it, how likely is it you're going to want to use it? How comfortable are you going to be with it? But once I figure, and Dino, this is the other crazy part. I cannot tell you when I knew there was nine. I
Oh,
can't go back to that moment in time. All of a sudden there were nine, and I don't have a specific date. I can't say I woke up and there they were. I can't say I don't know how that actually happened. I just know
interesting.
all of a sudden there were nine, and it's never varied from that. We've never had a 10th, and there's never been too many. It's just always been nine. And I don't know if that's a God-given thing or what it is. And I don't know why it's me that was tasked with this or figured this out. I have no idea how to even answer that or process that question. I just know that's what happened. And it's held true over and over and over
But
for hundreds of thousands.
as you say that though, what's fascinating is in a moment I know we're going to get to the how and the what, right? Because I
Yes.
think again, when we talk about your why, the missing piece, it just the visual I had in my head when you said that about the nine that you don't know when they happened, but they were just there.
Yeah.
When you include that with the how and the what, to me, it's that like the interlocking thing that's like, oh, those all fit together because those nine are also going to be part of the how and the what, how you do
Yes.
stuff, and that's fascinating.
So there are nine, for those of you listening, there are
Yes.
nine different whys, and all of us have all of them. But one of them is more dominant than the rest. And that's the one that becomes your why. So in Dino's case, his why is to contribute to a greater cause, add value, have an impact in the lives of others. He uses his time, his money, his energy, his connections to push other people forward.
Yep.
He's the glue that holds organizations together, right? He doesn't necessarily have to be the focus, but he wants to contribute in a meaningful way.
It's so Gary, I didn't plan this, but literally, what did we do before we started recording? I was just like, hey, have you talked to this guy, because I just see people. That's so funny because I know this about myself, but then that you even just saying that, I'm like, yeah, I do all the time that I don't even know what happened afterwards. Just like, hey, you should connect this person. I did that twice earlier today with another guest I had on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Can't stop yourself, right? Can't turn it
it's
off either.
no, and it's so it's who when we talk about who are you, right, and knowing
Yes.
who you are.
Yep.
I got to tell you, for me, it's something I remind myself of at least once a week now, where I'm just like, oh yeah, that's why I'm a contributor. I'll even use that as an excuse sometimes to my wife, honey, I'm a contributor. You can't blame me. I know you don't want me to spend time with this person, but I'm a contributor. That's what I do.
And here's where, so the next part is knowing your why is critical, but just as important is knowing your how and your what. So it's
Yes.
why you do what you do, your motivation, how you bring your why to life, your process, and ultimately what you bring, which is your deliverable.
Yep.
And so we call that your WHY.os or why operating system. It's the system that guides you. And so knowing your why is powerful, but 3 times more powerful is knowing your WHY.os.
Yep.
And so what we found is that one of the 9 whys is your why, one of them is your how, and one of them is your what. And so, Dino, you know your WHY.os, so
Yep.
I'll let you, or I can say it if you want.
Yeah. So mine is to contribute. My how is by simplifying things. And what I do is I gain people's trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and when you go through and discover your WHY.os, so where I was leading earlier is in 2016, we launched the Why Discovery, but in 2021, we launched the WHY.os Discovery, which finds your why, your how, your what, and builds your message for you in about 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
No, that was magic. When I first did that, I was like, I said it like, because people ask, what's your elevator pitch? Tell me what you do, all that stuff. When I added that into my world of just saying, I believe success happens when I contribute to a greater cause, and all of that, it just was like, yeah, that's totally it.
Yep. And that's the thing, is it gives you the words to clearly and simply and easily articulate, why should somebody choose you? So if you're looking for someone to help you have a bigger impact, if you're looking for someone to bring it to you in a simple, easy to understand way, and you're looking for someone that you can trust, that's that guide for you, Dino's the perfect person for that.
Yeah.
That's his why, his how, his what. That's his non-negotiables. That's the way it has to be for him. My why, like I said, is to find a better way and share it. How I do that is by making things clear and understandable, first for myself and then for others. But ultimately, what I bring is a simple solution so that others can move forward. So my why is better way, my how is clarify, and my what is simplify.
So now I know if I'm thinking about doing business with you and you were to say that to me, now I know, oh, I have a complex issue I can't figure out. Oh, I got to call Gary.
Yep.
Gary's going to be able to hear this and ask me some questions and probably give me a very thorough, but simple and actionable resolve.
Yep. It'll be better than what you currently have.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about your WHY.os is you didn't choose it and you can't turn it off.
Mm.
And it's just the way it is. It's like gravity, right? So whether you know about gravity or you don't know about gravity, it's still there.
It's still there.
Whether you know about your WHY.os or you don't know about your WHY.os, it's still there. So if you know about it, then you can use it in your life to make better decisions, to make better connections faster, to move forward faster, to find your confidence, your clarity, your purpose, your passion, your direction, your messaging, your marketing. It all comes from your WHY.os. So here's the thing, Dino, and you already know this, but for your listeners,
Yeah.
there's a lot of great assessments out there. Myers-Briggs, Kolbe, StrengthsFinder, DISC, great ones. And we love them and we use them. Those are how you take action, not why you take action.
Yep.
Is the WHY.os discovery better than those? No. It's a matter of sequence.
Yes.
The WHY.os comes first, and then the others will be that much more powerful, that much more meaningful. They'll dive deeper into your how. So start with the WHY.os, and the rest becomes a lot easier. Start with how. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let me put a button on that one, because I was very stuck when I first, not stuck. I just, the disc and the Kolbe and the blah, 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 all this stuff. And I actually am not a huge fan of a lot of personality assessments, because like I did at first, when I just saw what the words were, I'm going to take the assessment based upon my highest imagined self. Usually most people aren't completely like, I think there's a Harvard study that says 95% of people think that they're self-aware and only 13% really are. And so when we take these assessments, we're, oh yeah, I'm always kind and generous to people, whatever. We think of our highest self. So oftentimes those can come out differently. The other side of that is that I think that assessments in general aren't there to tell you what you already know. They're there to help you increase the areas where you might be a little weaker at. So if you're a disc and you're a D, then the ISC are there to help you actually improve those areas. So when I took it, the Y assessment, my biggest one that I do love a lot is the Kolbe, because the Kolbe does so much talk about how I do. Now I am if anybody knows the Kolbe scores, I'm a 3393. So that means I'm a super, super creative. I'm just a visionary. Like I have ideas coming out the wazoo. But when I understood why I do that, all of a sudden I went, oh, that gives me gasoline on that score and helps me understand a little bit more. So my question for you, Gary, is you have people I'm sure you come across who who want to be right, think they already know, like I just said, they're already self-aware. What type of, I should say, pushback, if you do you get from people? And how does the why resolve that self-doubt when they see what their thing is?
Well, the first thing that usually happens when we talk about the concept of why, and you've run into this yourself, is they'll pull out, the people will say, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I saw the TED Talk. In fact, I know my why. And I'll be, oh, great. Well, what's your why? And they'll pull out their phone and they'll show me a picture of their kids
Yes.
on the phone. Oh, this is my why. This is why I do what I do. Or maybe they'll show me a picture of a little red dress and say, I got to get into this dress in 6 months for a wedding. So that's why I'm working out the way I'm working out. Or my new book or my new business is my why. And what they're talking about is something very important. What they're talking about is a short-term motivation for doing things the way they're doing it. When their kids grow up, or the business moves on, or the wedding passes, they lose their why. So what we're talking about is something even more profound, which is why they the way they operate. And so my solution to all of the questioning of it is just having them do it. Because once you've discovered your WHY.os, you're like, damn, that's exactly me. And you can count on it happening every time. Yeah, that's exactly why I do. I didn't know that's how it needs to be worded, but now that I see it, that's exactly me. And it gives them that confidence that you can see them sit differently,
Yeah.
and walk differently and talk differently because they're sure. And that's,
I'll tell you, not only have I seen that, but I want to get into the 9 whys, but I think this goes right to your point. I was doing a speech around the why. And before I gave the speech, I was at a real estate conference, big, huge real estate national conference. And they were highlighting a gentleman on there who is a real estate investor. And I guess from how the story went from him on stage was he was building his business and doing everything for his family. And he was so excited to be able to do this. He came from poverty and he was very successful. But last year, his wife decided she wanted to leave him. And his world fell apart. And he's on stage talking about how his wife left him and the money didn't matter anymore. And he was in depression, but this company stood behind him, and he tells that story. But it allowed me to use that as an example of, now, if his why really was his family, then that means that it goes away the moment the family does, which hopefully, God forbid that happens to anybody, or the business goes away, the economy tanks, COVID, your why doesn't disappear. It can't. But if you're saying that's my why, it will. And so when I was able to reveal the 9 whys and say, let me show you why, even if you, heaven forbid, lose your family, even if the economy collapses, you'll still be who you are and you'll be successful if you focus on the why.
yes.
And that's very anchoring for people. And it totally changed the way that I gave that whole presentation. Because of course, at a real estate conference, everybody's like, I'll make more money and build all the millions of homes and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden when it wasn't about that. That was the vehicle to get them, but who they were wouldn't change. So
another way to think about that, I love what you're saying there, is what we're answering is the question, why should I choose you? And I'm not going to choose you to work with because you have 2 kids at home. And I'm not going to choose you to work with because you were writing a book or because you have to get into a dress in however many months.
Yeah.
But I am going to choose you because I know that you're somebody that wants to help others. You're obsessive about helping others have a bigger impact. You want to make it simple. And I know you're going to be that trusted source to where when you tell me something, it's going to be true.
Yeah.
And that's the power of knowing the WHY.os, is it allows me to answer. So here's what typically happens. Anytime you meet somebody, or even people in your family that you think you look at their hair, how they're dressed, their hairstyle, jewelry, posture, and you create a narrative around what you think you see.
Right.
And then that's who they become to you. But you don't really know who it is you're talking to. When you know their WHY.os, it strips away what you think you're seeing and it brings forward what is really there. And that's when you can have honest communication. That's when you can connect with them so much faster. Dino, I don't talk to anybody on the phone or Zoom or in person unless I know their WHY.os. I mean, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about?
A bunch of stuff that doesn't matter.
A bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. And if they haven't discovered their WHY.os before our call, I cancel the call. Because it doesn't matter who they are, because we're going to just waste a bunch of each other's time. So
Yeah.
where are you from? So like, where did you go to school? Like, who do you like? What sports teams do you like? Or, but when I know somebody's WHY.os, I can instantly get to, I'll know who I'm talking to. I'll know what's going on really good in their life, and I'll know what challenges they're facing in their life. And we can have a much better conversation when I know their WHY.os and I'll share with them mine.
Yeah.
So it's a really powerful tool to help you take your prospect to a client. So in the real estate world, so many people are using it now.
Yeah, because you're talking to what's most important to them. And when you know all the 9 whys and you know what their why is, or their WHY.os even more so, you can make sure you position your conversation, your words, your presentation to what's most important to them, which makes total sense.
Your WHY.os is your decision-making process. So let's go back to Dino. If you're at a place where you can write down something, write down the word contribute, which is his why.
Yep.
Write down the word simplify, which is Dino's how, and write down the word trust, which is Dino's what. So if you had an idea that you wanted to pose to Dino, you wanted to get his buy-in, you better show him how it's going to contribute to something greater than himself, have an impact in people's lives. You better show him how it's simple and easy to use, and you better show him how it's going to create trusting relationships, or he's not going to want it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if I show you, Dino, let me show you how this is going to contribute to other people's success, help them have a bigger impact. Let me show you how this is simple and easy to use. And let me show you how this is going to create trusting relationships. Now, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm all in.
All in.
It's hitting all my buttons.
That's what you are looking for. So when you know that about a prospect, you'll know exactly what words they need to hear in order to move forward. So that's how you present your product when you know that it's going to be good for them.
Let me take it out of the product space and I put it into a space that I'm very passionate about, which is marriage.
Yep.
When I teach this, one of the things that, and again, we're going to get to the 9 in a moment, but one of the things I talk about is there are obviously certain whys that I wouldn't say come up against, but maybe aren't as supportive as another why.
Yep.
My wife and I have a different why. I guarantee people who are listening to this, their wives, spouses, partners have different whys than them. So when I can talk to my spouse and her why and understand what her WHY.os is, but I also can say, honey, in order for me to want to do this, here's what I need. I need to know why it's contributing to a bigger cause. Usually it's bigger causes my home, my family, my kids, right? Obviously, but I need it simplified and I need to know that you can trust me to get it done. It's such a game changer in the conversation in all of your relationships. And I know most people listening to this are thinking business wise, which absolutely with your team members and things like that. But when it comes to your personal relationships, to be able to say, this is why my kid is feeling this way or acting this way, because they're not getting the ability. I'm complicating something and they're simplify. Yes. They want to make it better. And I'm saying, but do it my way because I'm dad. Right. There's a huge communication opportunity there for so many people. So
what most people are familiar with the golden rule, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated.
Right.
Well, what if they don't want to be treated the way you want to be treated?
Right. Exactly.
So then what do you do? So then you use the platinum rule.
Right.
Platinum rule is treat others the way they want to be treated.
Yes.
How you do that is by knowing their WHY.os, so that you'll know exactly how to connect with them in a way where they will feel heard and understood. And they'll be like, yep, you get me. You get me. And there's something so powerful about that, because what happens in marriages is that once you understand your significant other's WHY.os, you get to laugh at the things that used to frustrate the heck out of you.
Yep.
Because you know what it is you're looking at now. Before they do something, and you're like, why would you even think about doing that? Or that just makes no sense to me. Well, yeah, it doesn't make any sense to you, but it does to them.
Yep.
And you'll understand why it makes sense to them. And so you can laugh about it. I'll give you an example. My niece, and we'll just use their why, has the why of right way. So right way means they're really about structure, process, systems. They find things that work and they stick to it. And so she was a teacher, and every year she would take a group of students, high school students, to Turkey to teach English. So she knew what flights to take, what airline to take, where to stay, what hotels, what restaurants. She had it mapped
The
out,
process
planned out,
done. Yeah.
and she'd done it for 4 years in a row. The 5th year, she decides to take her husband with her. And his why is better way.
Oh, oh, nice.
So how do you think that worked out for them?
Yep.
Not well. Everywhere they went. Well, why are we going to this airline? This one's better. Why are we staying at this hotel? That one across the street looks better. This restaurant, there's a better one right there. World War III, right? They were ready to kill each other when they got back.
Yep.
Once they discovered their why and they knew what was going on, they could laugh about it. She would just smile at him when he's doing his better way thing. And he's go, oh my gosh, am I doing it again? Yep. He's go, I'm sorry, you didn't need a better way, did you? You already had it figured out. Yep, I already got it. And they could laugh about it versus fight about it.
Yep.
It gives you the language to understand each other very easily, very quickly, very non-confrontationally, so that you can have an even better relationship than you already have. And it's great with your kids too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a powerful blueprint and guide to intercommunication, right? The relational communication. It's so powerful on that. So we've kind of teased a few of the whys. We've talked
Yes.
about simplify. We've talked about contribute and trust. Let's go through all 9 whys real fast so everybody knows what they are, because I'm sure there are people screaming on the listening to this going like, what are the whys?
Okay. So if you have a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, the first why is contribute. And that's Dino's why. These are to contribute to a greater cause, add value, have an impact in the lives of others. These are people that want to help. They don't have to be the focus, but they want to contribute in a meaningful way. They use their time, their money, their energy, their connections to push other people forward. The second why is trust, which is Dino's what? Mm-hmm. To create relationships based upon trust, to be the trusted source, to be the one that others can count on. If you can trust them and they can trust you, the sky's the limit. There's nothing we can't do. But if you break their trust, how does that feel, Dino?
Oh yeah, they're dead to me.
Yep. Like a knife in the gut.
Yep.
So would it be valuable to know if your spouse has the why of trust, or your kids
yes
have the why of trust? Because if you break their trust, very, very hard to get back.
Yep.
The third why is make sense. To make sense of the complex and challenging. These are people that are great problem solvers. You can pretty much dump all your stuff onto them and they'll quickly synthesize it down to that thing that's keeping you stuck, help you understand it and move forward. So they help you move forward by helping you solve your problems. The fourth why is better way, to find a better way and share it. These are people that are great at innovating, taking things that are already there and making them better, improving upon them. They're rarely satisfied and always trying to move in a better way. The fifth why is right way. We were just talking about that. Right way, to do things the right way in order to get results. These are structure, process, systems people. They find things that work and stick to them. The sixth why is challenge. to challenge the status quo and think differently. These are people that think outside the box. They don't want to follow the rules. They don't want to do it their typical traditional way. They push the limits. Steve Jobs, Herb Kelleher, Richard Branson. They imagine things that are, they push the limits and imagine extraordinary. The seventh why is mastery, to seek mastery and understanding. These are people that like depth, breadth, detail. They take the simple and make it complex by diving in really deep, looking for the little things, the nuances that make the bigger difference. The eighth why is clarify. These are people that want things clear and understandable. They're the ones that ask lots of questions. When, you can picture them sitting on a fence trying to figure out which way to go until they're clear on what was the question and then what is the answer. They're going to just sit there. But once they make things clear, they're ready to move. And the last why is simplify, to decrease complexity, to take steps out, to make simpler, easier to use. They want things direct, to the point. Don't give me the fluff. Don't beat around the bush. Just hit me with it. So that's a quick synopsis of the 9 whys. Every one of you that's listening, you all have all 9, but one of them is more dominant than the rest. And that's the one that becomes your why. And so what happens, Dino, in the WHY.os discovery, there's over 4,000 question options to take the why. And that's why we call it a discovery instead of an assessment or a quiz or a test, is because there's over 4,000 question options. I use logic-based programming, where when you answer one question, it wipes away the ones you don't need to answer. And the next question is based on the answer you just gave, and it double checks itself. But what it actually does is it goes 9 levels deep. All 9 whys are put in order of most important to you to least important to you. Most important being your why, second most your how, third most your what, and it goes all the way 9 levels deep. So when you work with a coach, you'll get to see all 9 levels, and then you'll know what your non-negotiables are, what are important to you, and what's not important to you at all. And a really fascinating thing, Dino, is the number 9, the one that comes in last. Because one of my coaches taught me this, and she said, she calls it the divine 9. And she says, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
Sure.
When you focus on the 9th one and you make that one stronger, all the rest come up. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, that is interesting. I know what I'm thinking about. I'm like, I need to go look at my
all 9.
My 9. I don't know what my 9 is.
Yes. So it's in the WHY.os discovery does that all for you.
And I could see where, as a warning to people listening, who immediately right now, I know there are people who just wrote down those 9 whys. They're like, oh, I know what mine is. I know what mine is. I got to tell you again, when I was sure mine would be simplify. When I was absolutely simplify. I love to simplify things. I like simple thing, easy, like let's get done. And I have a question about that I might get to in a moment, but going through the WHY.os discovery really helped me organize. It wasn't that I wasn't simplify. It was just that how I used this simplify, which was how, and how it showed up. And it actually increased my confidence in simplifying things for people, because that's what I kind of do as a job, is I simplify how to connect more with people and communication and all that. And it increased my confidence because the gasoline behind that, the engine, if you will, it was actually to contribute. Yep. Like, and that's why I'd get so frustrated too when I'd have people and I'd be like, here is the plan. Like I would lay it out for people and they wouldn't do it. And I get so frustrated. Like, you said you wanted this as a thing. I'm like, I'm just trying to contribute to you, right? It's like a parent trying, I'm just help me help you, Jerry Maguire. Question for you though. Well, actually I want to back up to the reason why I give that warning is because what I found, and I don't know if this is your experience either, when I'm when I'm doing a presentation around the why, and I disclose the 9 whys, the one that tends to kind of get people feeling like, oh yeah, that's it for sure, especially if they're professionals. I deal with a lot of doctors. I deal in the dental and ortho industry, right? Is mastery. People are like, oh, mastery for sure. I'm mastery. And so I do the question, right, of like, okay, well, is this something that, what's the last thing that you got really so involved with when you were in school, where you're so focused on learning that you didn't party or do other things? And I was doing this, and I was actually at an office with a team, and this one girl who I was very surprised the way she said, oh, I'm a mastery. Kind of looking at it, I was like, really, you're a mastery? And I said, okay, well, let me ask you this question. I asked her the question. And I said, what was the last thing that you got super involved with, so much so that you forgot time, you didn't pick up your mom from the airport, whatever? She goes, last week, I was watching a thing on the news about volcanoes. And I went, I've never really studied volcanoes. And she said, I spent 12 hours researching volcanoes. And okay, yeah, you might be a mastery. But my question for you is this. Have you noticed, and I don't know if you have or not, I don't know the answer to this. Have you noticed there's a difference between certain I want to say neurodivergent, but like I have dyslexia. And so that's why I've always felt like I've looked at simplifying things in my life. Have you noticed that certain people with certain neuro tendencies will pop up on certain whys, or no?
Yeah, I have. And I would say ADD is very common with the why of challenge.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Huh? I'm sorry.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
They're boom, boom, boom. They're not going to stick to anything. Here's something that my team and I were just talking about today. And that's the width. Imagine that each why needs a different width of bumpers to play in order to do the best.
Okay.
To succeed. So the widest one would be the why of challenge, right? Somebody with the why of challenge does not want to follow the rules, does not want to be told what to do, does not want to draw inside the lines. They want to do it their own way. And so they need the widest bumpers.
Yeah.
And they will want to play. But as long as they're going in a certain direction, then okay, we're all right with that.
Right.
The narrowest one would be the why of right way.
Right way. Yeah, I was going to say,
They just want to be told what to do.
Yes.
Tell me what you want me to do, and I will do exactly what you told me to do.
Yeah.
Give them a really wide bumpers, and they're going to just die out there. Well, I don't know I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
That's the paralysis by analysis, right? Those people are just like freaking out. They're frozen with options.
And give the challenge person exactly what you want them to do and not vary from that. Not a chance. They're going to stay. So there's different width bumpers that you need for each of the 9 whys. And then that can also be translated into the WHY.os. So when you know the WHY.os, there's a formula we have for creating the width of the bumper so that you can see where they will function the best.
Yeah.
So for each of you listening, when you know that about yourself, I found it fascinating because I have the narrowest bumpers on my team, and I would have never guessed that. Not at all would I have guessed that. And now when I see it right there in front of me, I'm like, you know what? That actually is pretty true because I don't necessarily have to have a lot of structure, but I need some structure.
A really good visual. As you're saying, that's really good visual of just seeing that, your lane is going to have a bit wider bumpers versus small. I mean, it's really a good visual. I like that a lot. I'm going to use that.
I'll share with you when we're done what we've come up with for that. So I think you'll find it fascinating.
Oh, very cool. Wow. Well, I mean, we could talk about this for another hour, and and so let's do this. I want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you, connect with you, and I'll just put this out there too. You can connect with me. I have WHY certification. I understand that. That's why I have Gary on the show. But I want them to get to know you and your story as well. So where can people go to reach out to you?
Yeah. So if you want to discover your why or WHY.os, you can get a hold of Dino for that,
Yeah.
because Dino has access to it and he can share that with you. And that's the best way to go. If you're interested in maybe having me, speak at one of your events or bringing it to your organization differently than what Dino does, you can just go to whyinstitute.com, WHYinstitute.com, and go to my speaker page, and there's a way for you to connect with me there. But if you're looking to bring this into your organization, if you want to work with your team, you won't find anybody better than Dino.
Oh, that's nice.
He knows his stuff
I
really,
love
really
this stuff.
well, and eats, sleeps and drinks it. So he knows it really, really well. And I think going through Dino to get the WHY.os discovery would be phenomenal. Because see, there's two parts to this. There's discovering your WHY.os, and you can do that with the software that Dino has access to. But then there's the activation part of that. So there's discovery, knowing what it is, activating it in your life. And that's where Dino can really help you to delve deeper into it and how you can apply it to your life. Because here's a critical thing. If what you choose to do with your life is in line with your WHY.os, you will love what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You will have passion for what you do.
Yep.
And passion is the fuel that gives you the energy to pursue your dreams. Without passion, you don't have anything. You'll quit. You'll give up. With passion, you'll stick to it. So Dino can help you determine whether what you're doing is in line with your WHY.os, and then help you activate that within your life to bring it out. Does knowing your WHY.os, I'll ask you this question, Dino.
Mm-hmm.
Does knowing your WHY.os guarantee you're going to have an easier life?
No. As a matter of fact, I was just thinking about it's kind of frustrating sometimes because I'll give you an example. I was at an event listening to some speakers, and I love speaking. I love being on stage. I've been practicing and working on speaking for the last 20 years. And when I see bad speakers, I don't look at them as bad or wrong or anything. I want to help them so badly that I sit in my seat and I produce what they should be doing because I want to contribute to them doing better. And it can be very frustrating. So it's not my life, like it's a great tool. And if you are not living in that, if you are in a place where you're stuck in an audience and you can't contribute, right? If you're stuck in any place and you can't make it better, you can't show them a right way, you're going to be frustrated. And so if you're working in a job where you aren't able to use your why, then you aren't going to be passionate about it. And you're not going to be able to find the mastery that you're looking for sure.
So in the short term, it may be more challenging because you may have to make some decisions.
Yes.
Or want to make some decisions to move in the direction of your passion.
Yep.
But in the long term, it's going to be way more fulfilling.
And fulfilling for your team members too, because if you help your team members, if you have employees and they all know what their why is and you know what their WHY.os is, you can make sure they're in the right spot. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with where I'm like, I don't think they should be doing that job. That's not their personality. Oh, but they said they really wanted to, or, oh, we had an open spot. When you know those, it's so much easier to put people, the right people in the right spots on the bus.
A lot of people will ask me, why did you sell your dental practice? Because remember, I said my practice had really taken off. And so I was working 3 days a week. I had 4-day weekends every week, making a lot of money. Things were going great. Why would you change that? And so actually what happened, Dino, is I went to this event. We probably ate and drank a little too much. The next day I woke up with a headache, took a couple Advil, went back to bed. One of the Advil didn't dissolve and it lodged in my GI tract and it burnt a hole right where there was an artery. And I started bleeding internally.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know it. And I was in Santa Fe at the time, so I drove back to Albuquerque, where I'm from. I actually even went to the gym and worked out, but I just was feeling really crummy. And then I just started throwing up blood, and blood started coming out everywhere. And I ended up going to the ER, and they made me wait 11 hours. By the time they finally admitted me, my blood pressure was 60/30. I'd lost half of my blood. So blood in your GI tract acts like a laxative. So I got up to go to the restroom, and I wasn't in a private room. So I locked the door behind me, and then I passed out, and I hit my head on the sink and ended up in a pool of blood. And luckily I woke up, pushed the door open. Next thing I know, I'm in his bed. They cut all my clothes off. I had the 2 pads on me. You know, they revived me, off to surgery, tried to get to the bleed. They couldn't get to it. So they waited, and then they did a CAT scan to see if I'd stop bleeding. And when they did that CAT scan, they blew out my arm. And I started filling up with blood clots. And so I had blood clots growing into my lungs. And the doctor walks in and said, you know, Gary, we got to stop those blood clots, because if they get to your lungs, you're going to die. But if we try to stop the blood clots, we can't get to the bleed. So you're going to die. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound good. Like, what are we going to do? And luckily my phone rang at that moment. And it was a buddy of mine who's a cardiologist at the hospital. And he said, hey, Gary, I saw that you were here, and I don't like what they're going to do. So I'm going to take over. And anyways, I was in the ICU for 9 days, and I had to go to bed one evening with a IV of heparin in to stop the blood clots. And luckily I didn't bleed. And obviously I survived because I'm here right now, but it's pretty crazy what all happens in the hospital over the course of 9 days. You know, they put you in the ICU because most people, and what I found, at least in our hospital here, is there's no bathrooms and no showers in no showers in the ICU bathrooms. And I was like, well, why is that? They said, well, most people in the ICU floor don't survive, which is not a great spot to be.
Yeah.
But anyways, when I got back to my practice, one of my patients who was in his late 80s said, hey, you know, Gary, you got a second chance here on life. And when you get to be my age and you look back on your life, are you going to be glad that you stayed a dentist? Or are you going to wish that you'd taken this why thing to the world? And I said, I'm going to wish that I'd taken this why thing to the world. And he said, well, I think you know what you need to do then. So that's when I ended up selling my practice, and 3.5 years ago, going full force into this why. And so the reason I'm telling you that is because I had stopped living my why in my practice, my WHY.os, and now I'm fully living my WHY.os in my Why Institute business. But what do I know? What does a dentist know about creating software? What does a dentist know about bringing some software to the world? I made so many mistakes. I did so many things wrong. I wasted so much money doing so many things wrong because I didn't know. But man, did I have passion for it. And that gives you the ability to hang in there. So for those of you that are listening, when you discover your WHY.os, you might find that you're not in the right place. And you might have to make some challenging decisions, but you won't regret it. You won't regret it. And you'll love what you do, and you'll love the direction you're going. And it may take you a while to get things going the way you want, but it'll be so worth it. So, Dino, hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. That's so crucial. It is one of those things where you have to make a decision. Matter of fact, I'm going to be able to ask you a question like that in a moment. But Gary, thank you for all the wisdom and thank you for personally for bringing the WHY.os into my life, because it definitely helped enhance it, my business and everything I do. But thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with us on the show today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
So we end every show with 4 questions we ask everyone. And there are 4 rapid fire, just off the top of your head questions. And it's all based around your role, ROLE. Are you willing to play?
Sure. Let's do it.
First question is, what is your highest and greatest responsibility on this earth?
To share better ways. That's why I'm here. Find better ways and share them. Nothing else.
Love it. What do you want as the ultimate outcome for your life?
To have made a difference in 1 billion people's lives.
1 billion people's lives. That's beautiful.
We're bringing the WHY.os to 1 billion people in the next 15 years. We're on track for that now. We definitely need help to get there. And a lot of people like yourself have stepped forward to help us, and a lot more people are doing the same thing. So if you're listening and you want to be part of this, reach out to me.
That's an amazing mission. I love that. What do you consider true leadership to be?
Setting the vision. I had a general on my podcast recently, and he said, and I asked him that question, and I love his definition. And he said, if you look at a battleship, what does the leader do? He said, here's all they do. They set the vision. Here's where we're going. They then spend all the rest of their time going around to everyone on the ship and saying, what can I get you to help you do what you're doing better or easier? And they only go back to the bridge when they're a certain amount off course to help correct the direction. That's what a leader does. Set the direction, get out of the way, help your team do what they do even better.
It's great. Last one is every single one of us on this earth will have a day which will be our last on this earth. What experience do you want to or hope to have between now and dead?
My vision is to be the first step in self-awareness. I want it to be so common that when anyone's trying to figure out who they are, this is the first step they take. You can't steer a parked car. People are just looking for, where do I begin to figure out who I am? I want this to be the WHY.os, to be that first step. So I spend every day, a lot of nights, a lot of sleepless nights, trying to figure out how I can have that impact. Because I had one daughter, Dino, go through high school and college not knowing her why. And I had another daughter go through high school and college clear on her why. And one took 6 years, took a year off, couldn't figure it out. I couldn't seem to help her. And it was not a fun experience. And I had the other one just crystal clear from day one and rocket ship to what she wants to do. And is doing it now and living her dream. So if we can help our young, here's how I try to think about this, Dino. We all have a runway of how long we are going to be doing something and how big of an impact we can have. What if, so most people, what they do, it's not the short answer. I don't know if you want to.
It's okay. Go for it. Go
okay.
For it.
Most of us live our life by default, not knowing how to make a decision, go through high school and college trying to figure it out, end up picking something because it will make us some money or it's what somebody suggested I do, become invested into it, start accumulating things, cars, houses, spouses, kids, get locked into it until 40, 45, whatever that age is, until we can't take it any longer and the kids have moved on. And then we figure out who we are. And now our runway is so short for the impact we could make. What if we could help people have that clarity from 13, 15, 17 years old and on? What kind of an impact could they have? And so that's my vision. That's my goal. That's what I want to be remembered for. That's what I want to enlist other people to help us that have that same vision, because I know you're part of that as well. And it's what I want to be remembered for. And
that's awesome.
I can't think of anything better.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And then you're doing it. I mean, the evidence is there, right? It's you're making an impact. My company is called Our Ripple Effect. You're making that ripple effect in so many ways, and in ways that you don't even recognize or know, because you're not I'm a ripple from your stone, right? And so it just is powerful and amazing. And boy, we've been edified over this time. Thank you, Gary, for sharing all of that. It really does make a difference, and I'm so grateful. I want to ask you one last question, and it can be as short as you want to give it. Have you shown Simon this, and what was his reaction?
Yes. So when Simon tried to help me discover my why, I recorded those sessions.
Mm.
And then once I figured out the 9 whys, I recorded my session with him, showing him the
No
9
way.
whys.
That's so cool.
And he loved it. And, you know, he reached back out to me and wanted to collaborate. He said, because you have a process that's scalable.
Yes.
I'm very familiar with what they're doing. I took his process and made it better. So his process was and is go back through your life looking, telling stories of times when you felt successful.
Right.
And going all the way back to when you were a kid. Well,
right.
Here's what I figured out. If that's a repeatable process that you do over and over and over in your life, why do you have to go back to when you're 5 years old to see the pattern? I could take the last 2 things that happened to you.
Yeah, because happening right now. It's currently happening. Yeah.
Currently happening. So that's what I would do is I'd find those last couple stories. And then I did it so many times that I could see the pattern very quickly.
Love it.
But then he reached out and he said, hey, I'd love to be able to collaborate and let's do some things together. And then he put his lawyer on the phone and his lawyer said, well, I'd like for you to send me all of your stuff so we can see if you've infringed on any of our copyrights. And I said, love to. Perfect. No problem. Because I know I haven't. And then I said, but I'd also like you to send me your stuff so that I can see if you've infringed on my copyrights.
Or later on do. Yeah.
Because I own the word why. I have the trademark for the word why used in any personal growth, business growth, books. I own that trademark.
Wow.
And I have for many years. And that was the last I heard from them. So it's unfortunate because I really would like to work with Simon. I really liked working with him. I really like him.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. We had some great conversations, but the lawyers got in the middle and we haven't really connected since. So if somebody's listening to this and they know Simon and would love
maybe
to
switch lawyers.
Yeah, the lawyers. So at some point we will. At some point, he and I will have some great, because I give him credit for so much of this. Set me on the path.
Yeah.
To all of this. He's the why guy. I'm the how guy.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And I would love to share it with him. And at some point we will, because I mean, I have absolutely nothing negative in any way to say about Simon. He's only been wonderful to me in every way. So
that's awesome.
If you're listening, Simon, let's reconnect.
That's right. Well, again, thank you, Gary, for sharing all of that with us. I really do. I'm so grateful for it and so glad we were finally able to get this together. So thanks. Yes. All right, everyone, please go to the WHY.institute.com and look up what the WHY.os is all about. Reach out to me if you have any questions on that as well. Happy to help out. With that being said, thank you, everybody, again, for listening to the Own Your Role podcast. It was a very special episode with some really great information. And just want to thank you again for supporting the show. We'll see you on the next episode of Own Your Role.